So in this video, we're going to look at section 5.1%. So I gave you the 5.1 notes. It looks like this. You want to get those out, and we're going to do the first page in this video, the basics of percents. Okay, so first off, what is a percent? So a percent is the number of parts out of 100. Okay? So when we talk about 70%, it means you earned 70 out of 100. Okay? Or if you want to actually divide it, 70 divided by 100, it would give you 0.70. Okay? And that's what a percent. So a percent is how many out of 100. So we want to be able to convert numbers to a percent and percents back to numbers that are not percents. So first, to convert a number to a percent, we are going to multiply by 100 in order to get it out of 100 points. You can also move the decimal place to the right. So anytime I want to change something to percent, I always multiply by 100. So if I have 28.5, if I want to change it to a percent, I multiply it by 100. And anytime you multiply it by 100, what it does is it moves the decimal place to the right. So you can either do this in your calculator. If you do that, you get 2850, and then we're going to put a percent. Or again, you could also always move the decimal place 2 places to the right, and that also gives me 2850. And then you can write it, but we often don't write it after if there's no decimal places. So we can do it for a decimal, we can do it for a whole number, we can also do it for a fraction. So we would do the same idea. If I want to convert 2/5 to a percent, I would multiply this. I'm going to use the dot, multiply this by 100. And then remember, when we multiply, we put 100 over 1 and we multiply straight across. So we get 200 over 5. And then if we can, we divide. If you divide 200 by 5, you get 40. And so it's 40%. So number 3, convert 1 2/3 to a percent. So we want to do the same idea. But remember, anytime we have a mixed number, we have to change it to an improper to be able to change it to a percent. So to change it to an improper, again, we multiply the denominator by the whole number, and we add the numerator. Then we put it over the same denominator. So that gives me 3 plus 2 over 3. So we get 5/3. Now this is still my fraction. It's the same fraction as this one. It's just this is an improper. This is a mixed. To change to a percent, we again take our fraction and we always multiply by 100. And to multiply again, when we put it over 1, we do 500 over 3. Now 3 doesn't go into 500 and it doesn't reduce. So you can either leave it like this and put the percent symbol, or if they say to put it in a decimal form, you actually divide it and you get 166.6. We're going to do 2 decimals, 67%. It's 6 repeating. So you could also write 166.6 with the line. But I think all the homework questions ask you for 2 decimal places. So just get in the habit of doing 2 decimal places. So that is how we convert numbers to a percent. We can also convert from a percent. So what that means is I'm given a percentage and I want to find what the value is that's not a percent. Okay. So to convert from a percent, we do the opposite that we did before. We divide by 100. Or the other way to do it is dividing by the 100 is the same thing as moving the decimal place to the left. So anytime I want to change something out of a percent just to a decimal, I'm going to take that number and I'm going to divide by 100. And then some of the questions are going to say leave it in decimal form. If you leave it in decimal form, then actually divide this and you get 0.82. And so this is the value. And again, it's not a percentage anymore, so we don't put the percent sign. Or again, if you want to think about it as the decimals after the number, we would move it 2 to the left. And so the decimal would be here and we get 0.82. So 2 is the same thing. We want to convert 29.5% to a decimal. Any time to change it to a decimal. And we divide by 100. Now I know this is already a decimal, but because it's a percentage, we want to be changing it out of a percentage completely. And so again, we're dividing by 100. If you do that in your calculator, you get 0.295. Okay, and again, you can just think about it as here's my decimal. I'm going to move 2 to the left, and then my decimal goes in front of the 2. So that's how we convert. Now, some might say, again, to convert to out of the percent, but they might want it in fraction form. But then we just do the same thing. We just don't actually divide in our calculators. Instead, we just simplify it. So it says convert 13% to a fraction in simplest form. Again, anytime we start with a percentage, we divide by 100 to get it out of percentage. And then if they want it in fraction form, all we do is if we reduce if we can. And we can't reduce 13 over 100, so we're just going to leave it like that. Okay, so number 4, convert 78% to a fraction in simplest form. We're going to take 78. Again, anytime I'm changing out of percent form, I divide by 100. And then because they said leave it as a fraction, we're going to leave it as a fraction and just simplify. So both of these are divisible by 2. And that gives me 39 over 50. Right? And so that is it in fraction form. So just as a summary, when we want to convert from a percent out of percent form to a fraction or a decimal, we divide by 100. And if we want it as a fraction, we leave it in fraction form. If we want it as a decimal, we divide it in our calculator and get it as a decimal. If we want to convert to a percent, we take the fraction and we multiply by 100. And then the same thing with the decimal, we multiply it by 100. And so that's the summary of how to change percents to decimal form and decimal form to percents.